A billionaire's daughter was told she'd never walk again. The doctors gave up. The family lost hope. But one man, a janitor everyone ignored, held the key to her miracle. What happened next left the entire world in awe. This is the story of resilience, hidden heroes, and the power of believing when no one else does. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. Stories like this remind us that hope can come from the most unexpected places. Don't miss out on more life-changing moments. The fall. The sterile white walls of St. Gregory's Hospital hummed with quiet efficiency, a place where the wealthy came to be healed, and the staff moved like ghosts, unseen, unheard. Emily Whitmore, the only daughter of tech billionaire Robert Whitmore, lay in her private suite, her once vibrant green eyes now dull with resignation. The accident had stolen more than just her mobility. It had stolen her future. 6 weeks ago, a rain-slicked road and a reckless driver had sent her car spinning into a guardrail. The impact had fractured her spine. The best specialists in the country had gathered around her bed, their faces grave. "The damage is severe," the lead neurologist had said. With extensive therapy, she might regain some sensation, but walking again, it's unlikely. Her father, a man who commanded boardrooms and bent the world to his will, had stood frozen in the doorway, his usual confidence shattered. "There has to be another option," he had demanded, his voice rough with desperation. But medicine didn't bow to money, not in this case. Now, Emily stared at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster just to keep from screaming. Physical therapists came and went, their optimism fading with each failed session. Her fiancé, Daniel, had stopped visiting after the third week. He hadn't said it outright, but she knew. He couldn't handle the idea of a lifetime with someone broken. Then there was Marcus Reed. He was just a janitor, a quiet man in his late 40s who moved to the hospital like a shadow. He never spoke unless spoken to, his dark eyes taking in everything but giving nothing away. Every evening at exactly 7:15 p.m., he would mop the hallway outside Emily's room, his movement steady, unhurried. She had barely noticed him until tonight. The sound of her own sobbing filled the room, raw and ugly. She hated herself for it. But the weight of everything had finally crushed her. The doctor's pitying looks, her father's forced smiles, the way her legs lay useless beneath the sheets. It was too much. Then a voice from the doorway. "You know, I've seen worse cases than yours recover." Emily jerked her head toward the sound. Marcus stood there, leaning slightly on his mop, his expression unreadable. She wiped her face with a shaking hand, anger flaring. "Oh, really? And what would a janitor know about spinal injuries?" For a moment, he didn't respond. Then, with a quiet certainty that made her pause, he said, "Enough to know giving up is the only real disability." The words hung between them, sharp and unexpected. Before she could retort, a shrill alarm cut through the air. Her heart monitor. The steady beeping turned erratic, then flatlined. Panic erupted. Nurses rushed in, their voices overlapping as they checked wires, adjusted settings. Emily's vision blurred, her chest tightening. Then, suddenly, Marcus was there, pushing past them. Without hesitation, he reached for her foreline, adjusting the flow with practiced precision. The monitor's rhythm steadied. The head nurse, a stern woman named Carol, rounded on him. "You're not authorized to touch that. You could have..." But he just saved her. The voice came from the doorway. Robert Whitmore stood there, his sharp eyes locked on Marcus. The room fell silent. Marcus straightened, meeting his gaze without flinching. Robert stepped forward, his voice low. "Who are you?" For the first time, Emily really looked at the janitor. The way he carried himself, the calm in his movements even under pressure. This wasn't just some random hospital employee. And whatever his answer was, she had a feeling nothing would be the same after tonight. The secret, the silence in the room was thick enough to choke on. Marcus held Robert Whitmore's gaze, his expression unreadable. The nurses hovered uncertainly, glancing between the billionaire and the janitor as if waiting for an explosion. Emily's heart pounded, her fingers gripping the sheets. She had spent weeks drowning in hopelessness, and now, in the span of a single moment, this stranger had done what no doctor had managed. He had given her a reason to wonder. "Who are you?" Robert repeated, his voice sharper this time. Marcus exhaled, his shoulders relaxing just slightly, as if he'd been expecting this moment for a long time. "Someone who knows more about injuries like your daughters than most people in this building," he said quietly. Robert's eyes narrowed. "Explain." A beat passed. Then Marcus reached into his back pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet. From it, he extracted a faded military ID card. He handed it to Robert without a word. Emily strained to see. The card bore Marcus's photo, but the title beside it made her breath catch. Sergeant Marcus Reed, U.S. Army Medical Corps. "You were a medic?" Robert asked, his tone shifting from suspicion to something closer to curiosity. "Specialized in spinal trauma and battlefield rehab." Marcus confirmed. 5 tours overseas. Saw more broken bodies than I can count. Some walked again. Some didn't. The difference wasn't always the injury. It was the person. Emily's throat tightened. She wanted to dismiss him, to cling to the bitterness that had kept her numb for weeks. But something in his voice, the quiet certainty of a man who had seen too much, made her hesitate. Robert studied the ID, then handed it back. "Why are you working here as a janitor?" For the first time, Marcus's composure cracked. Just a flicker, but Emily saw it, the shadow that crossed his face. "Let's just say the Army and I didn't part on the best terms," he said. "And hospitals don't hire ex-medics with complicated discharges." Robert didn't press further. Instead, he turned to Emily, his voice softer. "What do you think?" She swallowed hard. Part of her wanted to scream, to demand why some random janitor thought he could fix her when teams of specialists had failed. But another part, a part she had buried deep, whispered, "What if he's right? I think I'm tired of people telling me what I can't do," she said finally. A slow nod from Robert. Then he looked back at Marcus. "Help her, whatever it takes." Marcus hesitated. "It won't be easy. For either of you. Nothing worth doing ever is," Robert replied. The next morning, Marcus arrived at Emily's room not in his janitor's uniform, but in a simple gray t-shirt and sweatpants. He carried no medical equipment, no charts, just a folded piece of paper. "First rule," he said, handing it to her. "No more pity." Emily unfolded the paper. It was a list, short, blunt, and infuriating. 1, no, I can't. 2, no excuses. 3, pain is part of the process. You don't get to quit. She glared up at him. "That's it? No miracle cure? Just tough love. You want a miracle?" Marcus crossed his arms. "Then stand up." "I can't." She caught herself, biting down on the words. "Exactly." He stepped closer. "The second you decide you're done being a victim, we'll get somewhere." Emily's face burned. No one had spoken to her like this. Not her father, not the doctors, certainly not Daniel. It should have made her furious. Instead, it ignited something she thought she'd lost. "Fine," she snapped. "What's next?" Marcus almost smiled. "Now we see what you're really made of." By the end of the week, rumors had spread through the hospital. The Whitmore girl was training with the janitor. Some staff whispered about malpractice. Others joked that money could buy anything, even a miracle. But no one laughed when, on Friday afternoon, Emily, sweating, shaking, and swearing, managed to lift herself in the wheelchair for 3 full seconds before collapsing back into it. Marcus caught her before she could fall. For the first time, she didn't pull away. "Told you," he said, his voice low. "You just had to want it." Across the room, Robert Whitmore watched, his eyes glistening. He had spent a lifetime solving problems with wealth and power. But this was something no amount of money could have bought. And it was only the beginning. The breakthrough. The physical therapy room had become Emily's battlefield. Every morning at dawn, before the hospital staff arrived, she and Marcus worked in near silence. No pity, no platitudes, just a raw, grueling effort of rebuilding what had been broken. Today was different. Emily's hands gripped the parallel bars until her knuckles turned white. Sweat dripped down her temples as she fought to keep her balance. Her legs trembled violently, but for the first time since the accident, she could feel them, Not just pain, not just numbness, but the faintest spark of control. Again, Marcus ordered, his voice steady. She shot him a glare. I just did it 3 times. And you'll do it 3 more. He didn't raise his voice, didn't soften. Unless you'd rather go back to the wheelchair. Emily gritted her teeth. She hated him in moments like this. Hated the way he refused to coddle her. Hated how he saw through every excuse before she could even voice it. But more than that, she hated how right he was. With a sharp exhale, she pushed up again, her arms shaking. 1 step, then another. The muscles in her legs screamed in protest, but she didn't stop. Good, Marcus said, and the rare praise sent a surge of determination through her. Then her knee buckled. She pitched forward, a cry escaping her lips. Marcus moved like lightning, catching her before she hit the ground. His grip was firm, unyielding, but for the first time, she didn't feel like a patient in his arms. She felt like a fighter. You're getting stronger, he said, helping her back to the wheelchair. Emily slumped into the seat, her breath ragged. It doesn't feel like it. Progress isn't pretty. He tossed her a towel. But it's happening. She wiped her face, studying him. Marcus was a mystery. Stoic, guarded, revealing nothing unless forced. Yet here he was, spending hours with her when no one else had believed she could do this. Why are you helping me? She asked suddenly. He stilled, then shrugged. Someone once gave me a second chance. Figured I'd pay it forward. Before she could press further, the door swung open. Daniel stood there, impeccably dressed, his blonde hair perfectly styled. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine, not a man visiting a hospital. Emily, he said, his voice dripping with false warmth. I heard you were making progress. I had to see for myself. Her stomach twisted. Daniel hadn't visited in weeks. Not since the doctors had said she might never walk again. Now suddenly he was here? Marcus glanced between them, then grabbed his jacket. I'll give you 2 some space. No, Emily said, sharper than she intended. Stay. Daniel's smile faltered. He stepped forward, ignoring Marcus completely. I've missed you. I've been processing everything. But I realize I can't stay away. Not when I love you this much. Emily stared at him. The words should have melted her. Once they would have. But now, after weeks of fighting for every inch of progress, they rang hollow. You left, she said flatly. I was scared, Daniel admitted, running a hand through his hair. But I'm here now. And when you're better, we can pick up where we left off. When I'm better, she echoed. Not if, when. As if her progress was inevitable now that there was something in it for him. Marcus shifted slightly, his presence a silent anchor. Emily exhaled. You should go, Daniel. His face darkened. You're choosing him over me? He gestured dismissively at Marcus. A janitor? Marcus didn't react, but Emily saw the flicker in his eyes. Something dangerous, something barely restrained. I'm choosing myself, she said coldly. Now get out. For a moment, Daniel looked like he might argue. Then, with a scoff, he turned on his heel and left, slamming the door behind him. The silence that followed was heavy. You didn't have to do that, Marcus said finally. Yes, I did. Emily met his gaze. I'm done letting people decide what I'm worth. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then, to her surprise, he nodded, not as her therapist, not as her janitor, but as someone who understood. Good, he said, because tomorrow we're ditching the bars. Emily's pulse jumped. What? You heard me. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Time to see if you can stand on your own. As he left, Emily stared after him, a mix of fear and anticipation coursing through her. For the first time in months, she wasn't just surviving. She was alive. And tomorrow she would walk. The first steps. The morning sun streamed through the hospital windows, casting long golden streaks across the therapy room floor. Emily sat in her wheelchair, her fingers drumming nervously against the armrests. Today was the day. No parallel bars. No safety nets. Just her legs, and Marcus's unshakable belief that she could do this. Marcus stood in front of her, arms crossed, his usual stoic expression in place. But there was something different in his eyes today, something that looked almost like pride. "You ready?" he asked. Emily swallowed hard. "What if I fall?" "Then you get back up." He held out his hand. "That's the whole point." She hesitated for just a second before gripping his forearm, her other hand bracing against the wheelchair. Her legs trembled as she shifted her weight forward, her muscles protesting the unfamiliar strain. Inch by inch, she rose, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. And then she was standing. No support, no bars, just her own 2 feet on the ground. A disbelieving laugh escaped her lips. "I'm doing it." Marcus didn't smile, but the intensity in his gaze said everything. "Now take a step." Emily's heart pounded. She focused on the spot just beyond her toes, willing her body to move. Her right leg lifted, just barely, and then her foot touched down again, a fraction of an inch forward. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't pretty, but it was a step. Tears blurred her vision as she took another, and another. Marcus stayed close, his hands hovering, ready to catch her if she stumbled. But she didn't. Not this time. The door burst open. Robert Whitmore stood frozen in the doorway, his face a mix of shock and awe. "Emily!" His voice cracked. She turned her head, grinning through the tears. "Hey, Dad, look at me." Robert's knees nearly buckled. He stumbled forward, pulling her into a crushing hug the second she was within reach. "You're walking," he whispered, as if saying it louder might break the spell. "Yeah," she breathed. "I am." Over her father's shoulder, she locked eyes with Marcus. For the first time since she'd met him, the corner of his mouth lifted, just slightly, into something that might have been a smile. 3 months later, Emily stood at the entrance of Reed Rehabilitation Center, a newly renovated facility funded entirely by her father. The sign above the door bore Marcus's name, a tribute to the man who had refused to let her give up. Inside, patients worked tirelessly, their determination mirroring her own journey. Marcus moved among them, his quiet confidence inspiring the same hope he'd once given her. Emily walked toward him, no wheelchair, no hesitation. Just steady, sure steps. "So," she said, grinning, "what's next?" Marcus glanced at her, then at the room full of people fighting their own battles. "Now," he said, "we help the ones everyone else gave up on." And as Emily looked around at the faces filled with newfound hope, she realized something. Her first steps hadn't just been a miracle. They'd been the beginning of something much bigger. If this story inspired you, hit the like button and share it with someone who needs a reminder that miracles happen when we refuse to give up. What's the one obstacle you've overcome against all odds? Tell us in the comments below. We want to hear your story. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life moments that prove anything is possible.